Hello guys, welcome back to my spawn guide series where today we're going to be covering terminal hardpoint. For those of you who are new to the series, I'm going to be giving you a little bit of an intro on how this sort of the guide works and what all the colors mean, and if you want to check out previous videos, there's a playlist down below for you guys to check out. Just to start things off, the rings you're seeing on the hills on the map right here are the specific spawn points, and the shaded areas like these bits here are how to block said spawns. So for example, in order to block blue spawns, the blue ring spawns, you have to be in these shaded areas. I also want to add, because I don't cover this and I presume it's knowledge, but if you are also in sight of a spawn point or you are already in a spawn point, that also blocks the spawns. So obviously, if you're in this blue ring, the enemy team aren't going to spawn there. If you're top Eskies and you can see the blue ring, the enemy team aren't going to spawn there either. So in a 4v4 situation, that's what happens. Obviously in pubs it's a little bit different because it's a little bit more chaotic. But the shades, the areas I've highlighted are where you could potentially be not sure about, and just to give you a general guide. But yeah, of course, if you're in a point or you are seeing a spawn point, they can't spawn in it. I also wanted to say that this introduction, or this guide, sorry, covers 99% of possibilities. Obviously, there are thousands of spawn points per hill, per map, and I just simply can't cover 100% of all possible outcomes, but this should give you the best idea for 99% of situations, so you can go into your next terminal hardpoint and absolutely bosh the opposition. So kicking it off with P1, just to give you guys a bit of orientation on the map, the security metal detectors are back here on the left, and you've got the plane at the bottom right here, and then ESC is at the top just there. So P1 finds itself in this little area here. The two main spawn points we're going to have are the back security spawns, which is pink, and then the low ESC spawns, which are dark blue, both of which you can see are sort of fairly equidistant to the actual hill itself, so which means it's a bit of a leg race, but realistically, once people start respawning in, it's going to be a little bit of a 50-50 to the hill. The good spawn, in my opinion, is pink for a couple of reasons. First off, you can contest the spawn for P1, so you can get behind these pillars here and contest the P1 without the enemy being able to shoot you, albeit you can wallbang this little bin. But also you get better spawns for P2, which is in this teal area here. For me, blue is bad. You have to run further all the way to P2 and potentially to block spawn further out at yellow. So if you go, I'm going to get into this in a little bit, but you can actually, if you are in this blue point, if a pink team is a really good team, they can eventually spawn you out to this yellow, which obviously isn't a great idea for P1. So the risk of that makes the blue one worse, in my opinion. So realistically, you want to have these good spawns off the rip, and there's going to be a little bit of a theme here. You're going to see this little pink ring, this pink spawn, the good spawn, to the left of the map in security for pretty much for all of these hills. So if you want a very simplified version of terminal, hold these spawns for the whole game and you'll win. That's the very simplified part of it. Obviously you guys are here for the details. So pink team will always spawn pink unless it is blocked. So in order to block that, you can be in this little comms room here, as well as anywhere in the area that looks at it in this sort of general vicinity where my cursor is. If blue team pushes to security to block pink team, they'll spawn teal. So let's say, for example, the blue team have broken through P1, they've got P1 control, and they managed to push through security. The enemy team, the pink team, the secondary spawn will be teal. So just bear in mind that if you are pushing through P1, it doesn't mean, and you've got security spawns, it doesn't guarantee that they're not just waiting for you at P2 anyway. So just be aware that they can spawn there. Now, if the pink team, let's flip it around a little bit. If the pink team pushes out to P1 and have good map control around security in P2, the enemy team, the blue team, let's say, will spawn out yellow. So let's just give you guys a picture of where the people could be. You'll have someone on the pink team on the point, someone pushed out towards this top Heskis here where I've got these blue block points, someone back security bottom pink spawn, and then maybe someone P2 watching this. The enemy team will spawn all the way out in yellow, and that's probably the best possible outcome for the pink team because it spawns them in Narnia for both P2 and P1. So you should get decent time on both those hills from that push. But again, it's hard to get that much map control, but that's the ideal situation. Now, if the weight of the blue team is in the teal area, so let's say, for example, blue team decide when it gets to the end of P1 and they want to rotate through P2, let's say they flank through the plane and try and get up to this sort of area of the map, it actually influences the blue team to spawn in red, not blue. So even though blue might be really open, it's completely available, no one's blocking it, but the blue team have pushed around to this teal area, the next available spawn for them to be will be red, even though no one's blocking this blue. So if you spawn red, it doesn't necessarily mean someone's pushed through. All it means is that you've got teammates over towards teal. Now, if you spawn red, but you happen to notice that you have not got teammates towards teal, the chances towards this area here, chances are you do have enemies pushing you out P1 here, which is spawning you all the way over here. If the blue team manages to block pink, teal, and blue, the enemy team can spawn yellow. So watch back if you've got control of these areas. So in that, it's a really specific situation, but I've seen it happen on a lot of VODs I've used to research this. But let's say your blue team, one of you's just sort of spawned in. Meanwhile, one's pushed through security and one's already wrapped through P2. Just be careful that if you're coming off blue spawn here, you can get shot in the back from someone sat in yellow. This is sort of the last resort spawn that the game puts you if you're blocking all other areas. So just be careful if that does happen. Moving on to P2, which is this jewelry spawn here, or the perfume, whatever you guys want to call it. Again, the common theme, pink is good spawn. Security spawns are good. For me, it's the easier route to P2 and P4. Now, you're probably saying, well, P3 is the next hill, and I get that. But P4, this burger spawn here, is probably the most money hill in the game, full stop. Whereas on the blue side, you've got a narrow route to the hill. You're pretty much confined and you're filtered into this one line of sight. And you know, even though it has post rotation to P3, P3 can be a bit of a mixy hill, but if you get these blue spawns, you lose the spawns for P4 and P5, which we're going to get to shortly. So pink team will always spawn pink if there is pressure of pink team through P2. So let's say pink team has spawned up here and they're pushing up to P2. They're trying to fight for the time here. Pink team are pretty much always going to spawn there. If pink team spread through P1, so let's say, for example, if they wanted to, if someone on the pink team got a little bit gung-ho, they pushed out a little bit too far, let's say they pushed up towards P1 a little bit here, maybe to catch some people off spawn, it's actually going to get a little bit of a squad spawn. Pink team will eventually then spawn in yellow. So even though no one on the blue team has pushed through P2, let's say the pink team has someone in P2, but they've also got a little bit of weight towards the P1 side of the hill, it opens up the yellow spawn for the pink team and they can spawn here. So just be careful of not pushing out too far because you will spawn your teammates further away from P2. If pink team spread through P1 or red, they will spawn yellow, which I've already covered. And they may also spawn yellow. This is another situation if pink spawn is being blocked. Now, you might be thinking, well, if you spawn yellow, surely you're going to see if someone's, going to be blocking pink. But you can actually block this back pink security spawn from book. You'll see this little this pink patch here. If someone from the blue team manages to find their way into book, they'll be blocking pink spawn, and as a result, the next available spawn for the pink team will be yellow. So just be very careful. If you are that player in blue who have managed to wingle their way into book somehow, just be very careful to check your right, check your burger push of people rotating from this yellow spawn towards P2 because you'd have blocked the pink spawn by pushing up to book. If the hill is completely vacant, let's say no one's on either hill, no one's on P2 whatsoever, your team doesn't have it, the enemy team doesn't have it, no matter where the enemy is, blue team will spawn all the way back here. So it's very, very... if you're blue team, you want to make sure someone's on the hill, even if it's the enemy. You don't want to kill anyone off the hill as teammates are spawning in, because no matter where anyone else is on the map, they're going to pretty much spawn here, obviously, unless it's blocked. If it's blocked, they'll spawn red, which obviously is even worse. Similarly, on the flip side, if the hill isn't, no one's occupying the hill whatsoever, pink team will spawn yellow. So yeah, in summary of that one particular point, if no one's on the hill whatsoever, two main spawn points then become, instead of this dark blue and pink, they then become yellow and teal. So just be very aware of that. In some very rare occasions when all other points are blocked, they might spawn red, which is already sort of covered. So if you are on the pink side and you have managed to obtain security spawns, the best possible setup here is to have someone in the plane, ready for new, I guess, push through P2, plane and plane. Someone in security, blocking the pink and yellow spawn, and then someone sort of in P2 and hallway blocking the blue bottom plane and teal spawn. So that's generally the best setup, and as a result, they'll spawn all the way back here towards this red and teal section. And that means that they've got the furthest distance possible to get to P2, and then when you get to this plane spawns, you're just shooting at people running out across the open. Just be very careful. I do want to emphasize this massively. You do not want to give up this back security spawn too late into P3, because this burger hill is a 60-second hill if it is held correctly. So yeah, moving on to P3, which is this plain hill. Again, the pink spawn for me is the better hill, simply because it's better for P4 and there's more cover and routes for P3. So for example, if you spawn pink, you can pretty much run out of hall and see the whole cross from blue map, from the blue team into P3. And you can look, basically, you can see the entire cross to P3. However, for the blue team, the hill is very open. In order to get across from this blue spawn point all the way to P3, you've got to run across the apron, as it's called. into P3, and if you've got a solid AR on the enemy team from the pink team, they can just simply beam you from top hall, and then it's harder. It's harder for me, and as a result, I do not like spawning in blue. Pretty much, will always spawn there. Blue will always pretty much spawn there unless it's being blocked. So it's really obscure for blue to spawn out unless the people who are spawning over into the security area get a little bit overzealous and push out. So just be very careful. If you are in this pink zone, you don't spawn blue out, because realistically they're the spawns you want them to keep for the remainder of the match. If you find that your teammates are getting a little bit overzealous, let's say you even yourself push out to this top Eskies area, you will be blocking the blue spawn, and they will spawn on either one of these. Now, what can happen, which is a very, 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 very bizarre situation, what can happen is that pink and yellow are blocked by someone just sort of in this general vicinity, or someone pushed through this connector, and blue is blocked, but an enemy team will spawn behind everyone in this teal color here. That can happen. I've got an example of where that happens very shortly. So just be very careful that you're not, in essence, never push out past P1, because you'll be blocking that dark blue spawn, and that's just the worst thing that can happen for your team, especially moving into P4. Pink team will always spawn here for the majority of the time. So basically, these are going to be your main spawns, the pink and the dark blue. However, if pressure from pink transfers over to P4, they're more likely to spawn in the yellow spawn point. So let's say, for example, the pink team here spawn in security, lay off P3 a little bit. They don't put as much pressure towards P3, and instead they try and rotate to new. Their new spawn point, let's say 3 out of 4 members of the pink team are over in this P1 area, or just sort of vacating their way over to P4 in this Burger Hill. The new spawn point, when P3 is currently up, will be yellow, so they'll get a little bit more closer spawn to the hill, which is handy if you're trying to rotate. It means your team are going to be closer with you, rotating to P4. Blue team can push through P3 towards P2. So let's say, for example, blue team here have got decent P3 control, and they can push through towards P2. If they block the pink spawn and the back yellow spawn, it is the most ideal possible way in which you can flip the spawn. So if it were me coming off of P3, I would probably send all of my team through the plane, block the pink spawn back here, as well as blocking the yellow spawn. So wrap your way around Perfume, round back security in, and in doing so, you're blocking pink spawn and yellow spawn. The only thing to be very careful of is you're not blocking this dark blue spawn in that when that's happening, because it will spawn the enemy in teal. So just be very careful that no one in your team is here when you rotate through here, because it makes for some really bizarre spawns. So here's a little example of what I've just talked about here. So number 3 and 2 have just died, and they're the most recent people to have spawned in. So although it's going to look very bizarre, so although number 1 is all the way back here and number 4's here, number 7 is actually doing a huge job at blocking these spawns. No one here has got the availability to spawn in pink or yellow, if we take a step back to where we just were, because this guy is in book. So as a result, he's doing absolutely huge work here. He's enabled the enemy team to spawn out. Now, that's perfect, but what would happen if, say, number 5 was a little bit further back? Let's say number 5 was a little bit further back, and that blocks the blue spawns. Now, the only reason this works, and the only reason number 7 pushing through book here enabled the red team in this scenario to spawn all the way back here, is because no one was blocking this spawn. That's the biggest thing I can take from this. You want to get out of this area ASAP in order to open it up for the enemy team. Now let's take a little look at a little other example, which is what you don't want to happen. So this has happened just here. Number 5 is the most recent player to spawn in, and you're thinking, how on earth has that happened? This is taken literally as they've spawned in. So number 1, just here, this red player here is blocking the spawn back security. Number 4 is blocking the pink spawn just here. However, naturally, if we looked at the screenshot a second ago, you'd say, well, surely this green guy would spawn back here. But no, he can't. And the reason he can't is because number 3, and well, number 2 probably, were blocking this dark blue spawn. So just be very careful. As I say, if you've got someone top Eskies, the enemy team can't spawn blue, so they're going to get a rogue spawn here. So this guy being alive here, you know what? He's better off just dying before that point, because him being alive here has enabled a green enemy, a member of the green team, to spawn in the most unreadable spawn possible. Because realistically, number 1 and number 4 are going to think they're blocking both of these spawns, but realistically, because number 3 is there, number 5's only other place to spawn is in this back comms room. So just be very careful of that. the reason I'm putting so much significance on this is because this hill is such a massive hill to hold moving into P4. So you're going to see a very similar situation. Pink spawn, which is obviously, according to my rule book, the better spawn, is in this general area. So this is, again, going with the idea that you want to maintain these spawns back here as much as possible. So the two main spawns you're going to have here are the pink spawns and the dark blue spawns. As you can see, it's fairly equal distance to the hill, especially considering the dark blue spawns have got to run up the eskies as well. For me, pink is better because it's more covered to P4, and you actually want security spawns for P5, whereas blue have to go up eskies, take a long route to break the rotation, or the spawn point at least. Now, if you're on the pink team, let's say you're on the pink team, the biggest thing you want to do is trying to maintain the back security area at all costs. Obviously, this will benefit you in the next hill as well as this current hill. If you're on the blue team, the best thing to try and do is to push through book. If you push through book just here, you'll be blocking yellow. And if you manage to push through even a little bit further, you'll be able to block pink. A lot of people I see make the same mistake. They push through book, and they know the enemy team aren't spawning in yellow anymore, so they just assume that that's the spawn. The actual main spawn is pink, so just be very careful that if you manage to push out a book from the blue team, to watch your left, because people may be spawning in the book. If pink wanted the best possible setup here, and they needed someone, you basically needed someone blocking pink, blue, and yellow, and that will spawn the enemy all the way out to this teal color. Now, the way that can happen is if you had someone on P4. Now, this is a very similar situation to what we saw earlier on in the video. If you have someone on the hill getting time, you then have someone pushed up P1 to this top eskies blocking this dark blue, and you have maybe a couple of team members, one sat in P2 watching the push through this side, and one back security watching the push through book. That will spawn the enemy all the way out towards this teal color here, which means they've got to take a massive route to P4, which means you've got the best possible situation if you're this side. Let's say you're on the flip side and turns out you spawn in bottom eskies, you're on the blue team here. You need to be very careful that if you push through B2, they may still spawn yellow if the enemy spawns in just at the right time. So let's say you're a member of the blue team and you decide to take a route to try and block this pink spawn here in order to flip the spawns, which is probably the best thing you can do. You obviously maybe run through tunnel, run through hall, run through plane. In any case, you get here. Let's say you get a kill, but by the time that person you've just killed spawns in, if you haven't pushed around to this area, they will spawn here. So you may end up having to kill the same person twice. So just be very careful that if you manage to get a couple kills, or your teammates have managed to get a couple kills while you're blocking this pink spawn, it's very likely that they're going to spawn yellow. So you may have some really quick gunfights there, which is probably why if you played Terminal Hardpoint before, you've come across gunfights, you're thinking, what? He spawned very close. How's that happened? This is one of those situations where that can happen. So just be very careful when that happens. So that's P4. Realistically, the setup you're going to want, obviously, as I say, is someone on hill, and then you basically just want to hold these back spawns, making sure no one can flank you, and then someone watching across to the hill. Most simple hill to hold. Moving on to P5. Again, the pink spawn, the best spawn, is on the left-hand side of the map, so you're going to want to keep security. I'm going to keep banging on about this so you guys can remember. For me, the pink spawn is better here because they can see most of the hill almost immediately after spawning. And as you guys can tell, it's very much closer. Now, this might get patched because this has been patched, something like this has been patched in the past. But pink team spawn considerably closer to P5 than blue team spawns. Even the secondary spawn for pink, which is in P2, is a lot closer than the main spawn for blue. So P5 pops, you want to try your best not to spawn eskies, which is why I put so much emphasis on trying to get around to the security spawns as much as you can. Pink spawn can be blocked by hitting out burger. So if you are spawning dark blue and you want to make sure that they're not spawning in the pink zone, which is their primary spawn, all you want to really do is push through P1 and get into this general burger vicinity. That will block their spawn in pink, and as a result, they will instead spawn yellow. So just be very careful when you're pushing in from this way. Let's say you're a member of the blue team, you push all the way through burger, as a result, you've blocked this pink spawn, and you think you've got a free route into a hill. Just be very careful that you're probably going to get pressure from P2 or hall from this yellow spawn here. If yellow and pink are both blocked, you're going to spawn blue. The enemy team will spawn blue. So let's say you've gone 4 down. It's the worst thing in the world. Best thing you can do is all 4 members of the blue team block both yellow spawns. They rotate round here. They get decent kills. They win their gunfights, which is going to be hard to do. But yeah, let's say in the ideal situation, blue team managed to leave their spawn and they're blocking both pink and blue. and yellow spawns, sorry, pink and yellow spawns. The enemy teams will then spawn a blue as long as this isn't blocked. So as long as you haven't got teammates top Eskies, the enemy team will have this spawn open up for them and they will spawn there. Now, if the situation arises where someone's top Eskies, someone's also Burger, and then someone's also in this general vicinity, the only place the enemy can then spawn is teal. So that's probably the ideal potential setup, is to have someone pushed out Eskies here, which will spawn them teal, which is obviously the worst case scenario. So yeah, that's the best way in order to break P5 if you are blue. But yeah, realistically, if you're pink, you're going to want to maintain this spawn for the whole map. You want to really put a lot of emphasis. If you guys, if you guys have played Terminal before and you've got a little bit of experience in it, you're going to know how much easier this map is to play when you have security spawns compared to when you're spawning out this side of the map. So I hope this makes sense, guys. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope you've learned something. If there's any questions you guys have, feel free to DM me on Discord. You can comment down below. And if you want a copy of this document here, I have got it in my spawn guides server section, whatever you guys want to call it, in my Discord itself. The link for that of which is down in the description. Enjoy the rest of the day. Enjoy the rest of your day, guys, and I shall catch you in the next one. Ciao for now.